Moses was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. At first he was hesitant to do this, but in the end Moses obeyed the Lord, stood against Pharaoh, and led the people out of bondage and toward the promised land. We often associate leading with leadership roles such as husbands, employers, generals, presidents, elders, and such like. But we can lead without having an official leadership position. Leadership can be exerted through one's position, words, actions, and influence. We lead by directing others toward the way they should go and by showing them how to do what is right. And there are ways in which each of us can lead within the roles that we occupy, be it in the church, the home, the workplace, or society. But it takes courage to do so, and Moses is an example of one who had the courage to lead. The children of Israel had settled in Egypt in order to survive a famine, as we read in Genesis chapter 45. And thanks to Joseph and with the help of God, they prospered while they were there. And all of this happened while Pharaoh thought highly of Joseph. However, when a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph, the situation quickly changed. He saw the Israelites as a threat, so he tried to keep them under his control by making their lives bitter with hard labor. However, God was with the Israelites and continued to bless them. Even still, their oppression was quite severe, and they cried out to God for deliverance, and God heard their cries. So he planned a deliverer to come, a way to bring the Israelites out of this bondage, and he did this by choosing Moses to be the one to lead them. So why did this take courage on the part of Moses? Well, when we consider the example of Moses, we find 5 reasons why it took courage for him to lead the people out of Egypt. First, Moses didn't want to lead. Some people are natural-born leaders, others simply want to be in charge. Moses was not like this. When God called him to lead, he tried to come up with excuses so that he would not have to do it. He saw himself as being unfit to stand up to Pharaoh. He was afraid that the Israelites would not listen to him. He claimed to be a poor speaker, and eventually he said, "Please, Lord, now send the message by whomever you will." He wanted God to send anyone except him. Secondly, Moses had to face opposition. He first had to face Pharaoh, the leader of the most powerful nation on earth at the time. At one time, Pharaoh had threatened to kill him. And when Moses finally did lead the people out of Egypt, Pharaoh and his army pursued them. But if this were not enough, he also faced opposition from his own brethren, from Miriam, and from Aaron, and from Korah, and from his allies. Third, we see that the people often did not want to follow. When Pharaoh pursued them, they said that Moses had led them out into the wilderness to die. They thought that it would have been better to stay in Egypt and serve the Egyptians. But this was not the only time that the Israelites wished that they had never left. For we read in Exodus 16 and 17, Numbers 11 and 14, as well as other passages of time where other passages of Scripture where from time to time they decided that they really didn't want to serve Moses and the God of Moses. Well, at one point they even wanted to appoint another leader and return to Egypt in Numbers 14 and verse 4. Fourth, Moses had to lead the people out of comfort, security, and prosperity. Moses was leading them from bondage into a state of freedom and blessings from God. And this may not seem like it would be hard to convince the people to do, but it demands a strong faith in God and a firm sense of personal responsibility. People often accept oppression if it allows them to be dependent, and this is what happened with the Israelites. Even though they were sorely oppressed by Pharaoh, they preferred to serve the Egyptians if it meant they were able to eat bread to the full. Moses had to lead them away from the free food provided by their oppressive leaders to being provided by God from heaven. And then fifthly, Moses had to lead in the right way. He was not to be an oppressive leader like the ruler of Egypt, even though at one point in his life he was potentially positioned to attain that role. He was to lead as God's chosen spokesman. Moses had many excuses for not leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, yet he proved himself to be a man of courage by carrying out the difficult task of leading a reluctant people away from the bondage of a godless tyrant. And though we may not have a great burden of leadership placed upon us, such as Moses had, we all have the opportunity to lead people in one way or another. Therefore, let us all take courage and lead in a way that would be pleasing to God. Friends, we thank you for joining us today, and have a blessed day.